afternoon. I see we've just touched over 12 p.m. on the side. Welcome to the Mobilize webinar by GVR. So at GVR, we are very passionate about mobilizing the future. And when we talk about mobilizing the future, we always ask the question, what's next? Right? At GVR, we are all about continuous improvement. And when we ask what's next, we ask what is the next generation and what is the next evolution of our products? These are the things that drive continuous improvement at GVR and within our products. And in today's webinar, we'll be walking you through the Forecourt solutions we have, the product suite that we have, and what is the next generation of these products and how we've designed these products to help improve things like revenue, environmental protection, and efficiency in our customers' businesses. So as an opening slide, you can see the slide is very loaded. But this is just an overview firstly before we get into the products on what we cover when it comes to retail solutions. So starting at the top right, at the pump, interruption. So yeah, as I was saying, we offer pumps and dispensers also in alternative models, such as compressed natural gas, such as LPG, also AdBlue dispensers. AdBlue dispensers, I think, have come along from the necessity to improve diesel efficiency, right? And then we've also, as GVR, added hydrogen dispensers to our product suite, and this is to keep up with the increased demand of having to dispense alternative fuels.
Yeah, and by the way, Hoosain, in my recent travels, we've had that discussion in some countries in the Middle East, North Africa region, like Saudi Arabia and Morocco, who are, they seem to be having these discussions very openly right now about AdBlue and biodiesel, you know, for environmental and, you know, reduction of carbon emissions and as well as, the life cycle of the engines, of the diesel engines of the vehicles, especially the high-end vehicles. So there are some of these vehicles already in the market in Morocco and already in the market in Saudi Arabia, and so the requirement is starting to manifest, you know, in on ground. I've seen that myself. Right, so it's a good thing that we've already been in that business for a long time, especially in Northern Europe, where that's been a requirement for some time, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it all talks to us keeping up with what is next, right? It stays with the theme of evolution that we keep at the core of our development. And then a last bit to round off, and it's not really a dispenser, right? But it's part of keeping up with the evolution of technology is Gilbarco also has EV charging solutions. We've seen a large growth of the electrical vehicle market in the US and now starting up in Europe. So we have an EV charger with 4 different models that we can offer to the market. It's simplified in the sense that it's scalable. So it can be purchased as a low-end kilowatt and then scaled up to a high kilowatt EV charger. Moving on to the next bit down here, which is in the tank. So in the tank, our main product offering there is the Red Jacket submersible pump. Red Jacket submersible pump is also known as the bulletproof pump, because we normally install these units and they really run forever. Red Jacket submersible pumps also cover a range of horsepowers. So on the retail fueling side, we cover horsepower from 3/4 horsepower all the way up to 2 horsepower. We have them not just in submersibles that can dispense fuel such as petrol and diesel, but they also have we also offer models that dispense alternative fuels. So whether you have E85 fuel, or whether you have ethanol fuels or biofuels, we have submersible pumps that can cater for those. And one of the things that's least spoken about is corrosion in the tank, and we also offer a product which has a high corrosive resistance on submersibles. Alongside the submersible in the tank, we also install probes, and probes is an accessory of the tank cage, which I'll talk about shortly. Other accessories we install in the tank area are discriminating sump sensors, which can detect hydrocarbons, so where there is a leak possibly in that cavity or in that area. And we also install sensors that do line leak detection, which monitor the pressurized fuel line between the submersible pump and the dispenser. Moving to inside the service station. So inside the service station, or as we term it, inside the building, we have another two world-renowned products. One of them is the Veeder-Root automatic tank gauge. That's this item over here, and I'll talk about our latest models shortly. And then we have the DOMS Forecourt controller, also known as the PSS 5000 Forecourt controller. Both of these items have been proven over the last 30 years, and they've had an enormous evolution to keep up with the demands of retail forecourts. Up top, on this section of the slide, we now introduce Invenco by GVR. So, as some of you may know, Invenco by GVR is a worldwide retail and payment technology leader. So, as global leaders in the payment sector, Invenco by GVR really aims to be the operating system for retail convenience. And under the Invenco by GVR brand, our intention is to incorporate our products such as our Passport POS, our Insight 360 service platform, and our DOMS to be able to provide our retailers the agility with this technology to increase productivity and drive customers and customer engagement. So what I'll do going forward here is talk a little bit about the products individually. The dispenser you see on the screen right now is our latest offering to the dispenser market. It's called the Latitude pump and comes in a variation of formats. The one you see on the screen right now is the flagship, that's called the LS300, and really comes in configurations up to 8 hoses, as you see on the display there. For forecourts with limited real estate, we have a smaller version called an LS200, which accommodates a hose count up to 4 hoses. And then we have a little remote unit which doesn't have the canopy in a single and dual format, and that's called an LS100. We have first to market features on this unit. One of them is the lighted canopy. So lighted canopy is really, as you can see, a canopy that has indicators red or green, depending if the unit is idle or if the unit is in use. And that is very useful when it comes to traffic management, or where traffic flow might be an issue, or to indicate to a customer where the next available pump is or dispenser is. It's also got a skylight unit underneath.
Sorry, and you know, from a marketing perspective as well, the skylight and the LEDs, they can be configured. Did you know that? They can be configured. You can change these colors, you know, to whatever the customer's branding is. So it can be used for traffic management, and it can also be used for branding.
Absolutely. And for anybody who's seen the skylight active, it actually lights up the unit more, right? So it makes the forecourt a lot more visible and a lot more attractive. We also have some standard features on these units. Standard features include things like power safe electronics, And what that basically is, it manages power fluctuations from as low down as 90 volts AC, all the way up to about 380 volts AC. And that gives the customer lower cost of ownership, where you reduce the impact of poor voltage supplies to your service station and downtime on your pumps.
Sorry, I know you don't like it when I speak technical, Hoosain, but if there's anyone technical there, I'll just say the keywords: switch mode, power supply, and AC filter.
All right. We've also got enhanced security. What does enhanced security mean? You know, people throw these words out, but it really means that the pumps electronics has been improved in such a way that we limit tampering or interference with the pump, right? We know in this day and age, fuel is really liquid gold. So where people can find a way to try and defraud a customer or defraud a retailer, you know, they'll always try these things. So
and they're getting better at it, Hoosain, much better. They're getting smarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to be getting smarter as well.
Exactly, to keep up with things like hacking and so forth. So the pulses and the pulse communication into the electronic boards are all encrypted. You know, if any of these components are unplugged and someone tries to tamper with that, the computer board will detect that. Also things like the electromagnetic totalizer, where let's say a customer doesn't have a point of sale that he can manage his fuel sales. If these totalizers are disconnected in any way or interfered with in any way, the pump actually stops working, right? So we have a detection system to know if the totalizer is connected. And then the business has done substantial improvements on the flow, hydraulic flow of the pumps, and also the filtration of the pumps. So what these do hand in hand, it improves the service intervals where fuel quality might be an issue. All right, next of our products is our Red Jacket submersible. And what most customers would not know is that we've always termed it the Red Jacket, and now we see the terminology the Red Jacket, right? The Red Jacket is an improved version of the already bulletproof previous model. The new Red Jacket, which with its new design, has a better flow rate. And when we say better flow rate, the actual motor has been redesigned. So we have up to 5% better flow rate. And because this motor has been redesigned, it's also more efficient when it comes to power consumption. We've measured power consumption efficiencies of up to 8% better over the older submersible motor. These motors, as I mentioned in my opening, these submersibles, as I mentioned in the opening, come in various horsepower ranges for retail, from 3/4 up to 2 horsepower. But also, besides being 100% compatible with normal fuels such as gasoline, petrol, or diesel, we also have submersible pumps that are compatible with alternative fuels. So in countries where there's a mixture of ethanol, up to 15% ethanol, up to 100% methanol mixture, and then biofuels or diesel compatibility. We also have Red Jacket submersibles that are compatible with these fuels. Red Jacket also has a range called Maxim. Maxim has 3 and 5 horsepower motors, and this is really where flow rates of above 450 liters per minute are required. So let's say there's quite a big truck stop and trucks are moving in and out of the truck stop fairly quickly and need to be refueled fairly quickly. There's a range of Maxim pumps that can also cater for high flow rates.
And speaking of Red Jacket's compatibilities, Hoosain,
yes.
You know, you spoke earlier in the first slide about compatibilities with line leak detectors, which we'll talk to as part of the ATG slide.
Yeah.
You know, but there's something new on the horizon that we had discussed. You wanted to mention, right?
Sorry. Oh yes, I was about to get to that. So just before I get to that, I think one more extension of this product that I think is lesser known to our customers is the range called the Red Armor range. And this is really designed for very corrosive environments, right? Where customers might have a challenge with ultra low sulfur diesel, or where they have ethanol induced environments. The Red Armor range is designed to be the type of product that we can install in those environments, right? And then
Oh
moving
yeah,
on.
speaking of that, sorry, before you move on, just reminded me of something as well. You know, I realized recently that a lot of our customers and partners are not aware of the importance of the control boxes of the Red Jacket. You know, they're just using regular contactors in their panels to turn them on and off, and they're not really aware of the value that you can get from the control boxes that you can get with the Red Jacket, like the Isotrol or the IQ control box, right? Where you can have current draw monitoring, and you avoid dry runs, and you avoid overloads. You protect the Red Jacket. You have isolation relays in between the Red Jackets, as well as the very important thing that also I realized that not many people are aware of is the staging of the Red Jackets. So when you have the control box along with the ATG, you can actually stage the different Red Jackets in the different tanks of the site to decide which one is going to run based on either the load on them on the line, how many nozzles are lifted, because if too many nozzles are lifted, you might want to run multiple ones in the same time on the same line, right? Or based on the tank levels, you know, to avoid running dry. So based on the tank levels, you see the highest level, you run this pump. Once it gets to a certain threshold, you switch to another, the second highest tank, and so on. So these are all very smart control options that you know, come with the Red Jacket. That I realize, you know, we take it for granted, but I realize that not many people are familiar with those options.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd encourage any of the attendees here, you know, any of these products that we mentioned today, please feel free to reach out to either channel partners or GVR directly if you'd like to learn more about any of these products and what we're mentioning here today. So thanks, Adam. So yeah, before we move on to the next slide, GVR is aiming to introduce a new product for the MEA region called Hydrax. And Hydrax is basically designed to continuously remove water and improve the fuel quality in diesel specifically at the moment. We will be posting in the chat a quick poll to identify if anybody on the webinar today would be interested in us contacting them or understanding more about Hydrax.
Yeah, it seems I'm also getting the poll. Yes, please, I'd like to know more.
All right, so moving on to vapor recovery. So in MEA region, vapor recovery is mostly not mandatory, right? It's not regulated. But we do have countries, especially in the Middle East, where the environmental regulation is to implement vapor recovery. As such, vapor recovery is not a new product with GVR. It is a product that we offer. It comes in two formats. One is either at the pump vapor recovery or a centralized vapor recovery system. The more popular one, or the one that's implemented more often, is at the pump. And basically what that is within the pump, there is a vapor recovery system. So every time a vehicle is refueled, the vapor is recovered out of the tank or from the nozzle end and pumped back into the underground storage tank, right? You will see that we could either fit this at order of pump. So when you place an order, you could order a vapor recovery system built into the pump already. But the vapor recovery systems are also designed to be retrofit, right? Where your pumps are already installed, and this lowers your total cost of ownership, right? your pump's already installed, and the vapor recovery system can be retrofit on the pump, so you don't have to replace a complete pump. The vapor recovery systems cover, as you can see on the slide, various voltage ranges. So whether your country has 110 AC or 220, and doesn't matter the hertz. We also cover most of the global safety approvals for this equipment to be used.
And by the way, you're saying this is vapor recovery, right? This is the hardware that you see here is the hardware that we use for vapor recovery, as well as, the special nozzles and hoses as well that are compatible with vapor recovery, right? But in terms of software, our ATG software and DOM software is also capable of doing vapor recovery monitoring. So we have vapor recovery control using this hardware, as well as monitoring using our ATG system that connects to this VaporTech controller that you see here in the middle, and talks to the system on the pump to tell you, how effective your vapor recovery actually is, right? And I could go as far as saying that even like Hoosain mentioned that there are still not much regulation around vapor recovery in our region yet, but I'm telling you that I could go as far as to say that some Middle Eastern countries are using our vapor recovery results from the monitoring to actually set the country standard.
Thanks, and that's a good point to mention, right? And why is a good point? Our products are not designed that they are wholly independent. So when you install a pump, right, that's not an independent unit. Our pumps talk to our Forecourt controller, which talk to our POS. VaporTech, as you mentioned, talks to the Forecourt controller, which does the monitoring, right? The STP, we install a sensor on which talks back to an ATG. So the design is to allow us to connect the devices together and give the customer more benefit of not just having an individual product, but connected devices. Then we look at our new, and when I say new, it's not yesterday. It's probably been coming on for the last 13 years, our TLS4 range of consoles. We have two standard or entry-level consoles, the TLS4 and 4B. And then we have the TLS450 Plus, which is our flagship. So when we look at the 4 and the 4B, the 4 has 6 inputs and the 4B has 6 inputs and the 4 has 12, right? And that's really just an input differentiation. What that allows us to do is to install up to 12 or 6 inputs, meaning for a smaller site where you had maybe 3 dispensers and 3 tanks, you would install a smaller console and you could check the tank levels as well as discriminating sensors. So you could plug in sensors under your dispensers or in your tank man chambers to check for leaks that you wouldn't normally see visually, right? On the higher model, the 4, we also offer tank leak detection, continuous tank leak detection as a software, and also reconciliation. So fuel leaving the tank versus nozzle sales. On the 450 Plus, which is the higher end model, here obviously we have a lot more features and a lot more inputs we can add. As you can see on the note, we can go up to like 32 probes. I think that number's probably changed. It's probably higher now. I think 64 is probably the number.
It's a lot higher, and you can go even higher with an extension box.
Yeah.
Like
and
this would be your main input. Like if you order a specific part number for the 450 Plus, that would come with 2 USMs, 2 sensor modules. Each sensor module holds up to 16 probes, right? Or 16 input sensors, because it's a universal sensor module. So any type of the sensors that Hoosain mentioned, and some others as well, right? So you can add as many USMs as you can. You have 4 slots in the 450 Plus, and you can get an extension box that has 4 other slots as well. So really in the 450 Plus, you're as limited, only limited by your imagination. I haven't seen a site that's too big for the 450 plus with all types of sensors installed.
Yeah, absolutely. We've managed to, in South Africa, we've actually managed to install a service station that required an XP box. It's quite a huge service station. And we did that without any issue. So from a software perspective on the TLS 450 Plus, it's very strongly geared to environmental protection. So monitoring, number one, tank leaks, so continuously monitoring line leaks. So when you have submersible pumps pushing fuel to dispensers, we monitor those lines under pressure. You can add as many sensors as you want to monitor your sumps, so under the dispensers or pumps, or in the tank man chambers, or in the monitoring wells, and really protect your own investment as a retailer, or to protect, or not all, and to protect the environment, right, from spillages.
Yeah, and density probes to monitor the quality of the fuel. You've got double wall sensors to monitor the interstitial liquid in the double wall. You've got even, you can go as far as groundwater sensors around the pits around the tank to make sure that there's no groundwater infiltration happening in the site. So the range of accessories is goes far and wide.
And just circling back to the connectivity discussion, right? When you install a TLS 450 Plus, the comment that Adham made around managing the submersible pump, right? Where we can alternate tanks. So if two tanks are manifolded, we can ensure through the manifold system on the TLS 450 Plus that the levels either drop equally, or one tank empties first and then switches over to the second tank. And also control those submersibles when there's an issue. If we detect a possible leak on a line, we could shut those submersibles down, or detect there's possible water in the tank, we could shut those submersibles down. So that also
It's a full instrumentation kind of control system, and that's the one thing that it kind of frustrates me to see that people think of the TLS as just the TLS. TLS, it stands for tank level system, right?
Yeah.
So people usually think of the TLS as just another ATG, just another, console with sensors that tells you what's inside the tanks. But it's actually much, much more than that. And it goes on to full electrical control of the site, staging of the red jackets. You can set up automatic events to trigger relays whenever there's a certain alarm. So if there's high water in the tank, low product in the tank, you can set up alarms and events to actually shut down the line. You can have your, smaller DC relays trigger a light somewhere, or an overfill siren or alarm, bighorn outside if the tank's about to overfill. You can even link that to the valves to close. There's a lot that you can get, very creative with when it comes to this ATG specifically. So I'd really like to change the perspective that, it's not just a tank monitoring tool. It's much, much more than that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adham.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to what I think most people would refer to as the go-to forecourt controller of choice for the oil companies. The design of our DOMS forecourt controller, right, is not just gauged at oil companies, but also designed at the individual retailer to allow a lot more flexibility in terms of mixing point of sale and forecourt equipment of any type or any brand. We have a new platform displayed here on the right-hand side called the CPD 539 platform. And this platform is really designed around being cloud ready, or what we call ready for IoT, the Internet of Things. The platform incorporates a very, very high degree of authentication and security because we connect it to the cloud, right? It's not, again, it's not a standalone device, right? We need to ensure a high level of security between the device and the cloud. This design is really an improvement on the old one. So what you already have as a bulletproof DOMS box has been improved and designed for the forecourt of the future. Our DOMS forecourt controller has the ability to connect to well over 100 different protocols. And when we talk about protocols, we talk about the devices that sit on the forecourt, whether that's a price pole, whether that's an auto payment terminal, whether it's a car wash, whether it's a tank gauge, or whether it's a dispenser.
And by the way, just speaking of protocols, you know, when you say 100 plus protocols, it doesn't mean 100 plus brands of, let's say, forecourt equipment. Let's take dispensers. So if I'm saying I can support 100 protocols, doesn't mean I can support 100 brands of dispensers. It's actually, in fact, a lot more, exponentially more, because a lot of dispenser manufacturers use common protocols like IFSF, for example, which is an international standard, and we support it. And I just want to make it clear that, you know, the numbers of protocols that DOMS support is I would dare to say unparalleled.
No, you're 100% correct. I think the DOMS forecourt controller has really integrated to virtually any pump on the market, right? If there isn't a pump that we have integrated to, our DOMS engineering team are very, very happy to take on any customer-led opportunity and integrate to a pump. So let's say, for example, a customer might have pumps in the network that we have not been exposed to. Our DOMS team would be more than happy to look at taking that pump protocol if a customer wants to pursue this forecourt controller and create a protocol and an interface card to talk to their pumps.
Yes, and protocols are in one direction, the forecourt protocols for the DOMS to bring together all of the forecourt devices and translate the communications between all the forecourt devices. And on the other side of a protocol types is the POS protocol, right? So that it can integrate with POS and back office systems at site level. And there's also on another layer, there's a host protocol to communicate with the head office layer, and there's push to cloud services where we can securely transfer files and do get and post commands with any type of head office. And when I talk POS and head office, it's Galbarco ones, which I think Hoosain will mention something about later on, as well as non-Galbarco ones, which we are, you know, integrated with some non-Galbarco POS systems as well, and you know, and head office systems.
Absolutely, I think those comments are very valid, right? If we look at the slide here, if we look at the back end to DOMS, firstly, the comment that Adam just made about the POS here and the POS. So a POS or POS service provider that is non-Gilbarco, you can see we have integrated to many in the past. EPS systems going off the LAN into a global network where data needs to go into a head office, right? Or service company or depot type scenario where the depots need to understand in their network where they need to push their next deliveries to, right? These are all integrations that have been done in the past and that DOMS has the capability of. All we've done now with improvement on the new platform is that with the push to cloud, there isn't a need for a poll. So where there's a software service in the cloud, as we offer in Inside 360, where we normally poll the DOMS and extract tank levels, the DOMS is now designed to push those levels up. And similarly with the push service, we can now also incorporate any alarms that come from the forecourt. A pump's not working, right? A tank fuel level is low. There's contamination in a tank. We can push those alarm levels into a cloud service. And then last, but certainly not least, to round off the offering of GVR for retail forecourts is our Passport Suite. So Passport Suite has been redesigned, if I can call it that, where it provides a fully customizable POS system that has a cloud-based back office system. So this opens up the door for a bunch of improvements, right? One, when we look at simplifying the POS suite, and by simplifying, I sincerely do not mean downsizing the suite, but simplifying it in the sense that we've shaped it to future-proof the customer's business. One, any changes in payment card security, the implementation is a lot quicker. The system has a modular design, which means when we install the POS on site. That, number one, reduces the downtime, reduces the complete installation time, right? Two, your BOS is cloud-based, so the customer themselves has access to the product suite, their prices, their management of the employees at, let's call it at your fingertips, because you don't need to be on site to do your maintenance on your back office. You could be virtually anywhere because it's cloud-based, right? The maintenance of that cloud is easier. The security on the cloud is unmatched, because if we had equipment that sat on site, the opportunity for hacking or malicious intent is quite good. You reduce the overall cost of your installation, because with a cloud-based back office system, you do not need additional hardware for a back office machine with its ancillaries. And also, once the system is installed, firstly, the installation time is reduced, and the training time for your employees is reduced. The capabilities of offering remote support is much improved. And I think the biggest honing feature that we promote is data protection, right? So with a cloud-based back office system, the securities are improved, and then also when it comes to reporting, right, having the ability to harness cloud-based analytics, the reporting systems that the customer can draw from the system is unparalleled.
Yes, and also I think let's not forget to mention the fact that you with the Passport suite, you've got everything in one software. You've got your convenience retail data being managed, as well as your wet stock managed in the same software, which is something that not many softwares can do. There's a lot of convenience retail software out there, but one that manages both wet stock and dry stock in the same place is a big value add in my view.
Absolutely. And when you look at replication, right? So let's look at an individual retailer installs Passport suite with his head office. If the retailer expands his network and acquires a second service station, the implementation is, number one, seamless, and two, much more efficient, right? The replication from one side to the next would be easy, and the back office is already centralized, and that can be rolled up into an head office. So from an oil company perspective that has a network of sites, the implementation and the management just becomes more and more effortless as the network expands.
Exactly, as well as the addition of other features, like when you talk about self-service, both convenience retail and on the forecourt. When you talk about things like QSR, gastro, integrating with the restaurant and order POS and kitchen, because convenience stores in forecourts are getting larger and are getting, are having the need for more of these functionalities. Right, so the Passport suite is ready for that.
Absolutely. And when we speak about modular, right, we speak about exactly the points that you owned on. One, in-store purchases. So customer walks in, make the in-store purchases seamless. Two, online purchases, right? Where a customer can purchase online and collect at the store. Self-service. So if we look at other retail chains where, and I'm going to use McDonald's as an example, right? They've moved towards a self-service checkout. Okay. We also have that feature already, self-service checkout, and we've implemented that in the Middle East already. Different payment methods, whether the customer wants to come in and pay with his cash, whether he wants to pay with his card, whether he wants to scan an app to pay, right? These are all things that the system is built to cater for, right? So we're future-proofing the system to look at what are the aspects that the future is moving to, and how do we incorporate those things to make the experience for the customer more seamless.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hoosain.
Fantastic. I think we're at a point for some Q&A.
Yes. See, there's a couple of questions there. Like literally a couple, but by the time we answer those, we got the time for a couple more. So if any more questions pop up by then, we can answer those as well. So let me read you the first question, Hoosain. Could you please recommend what sort of breakaway coupling and where that should be installed with the hose retractors on the Latitude?
What sort of breakaway couplings, right?
But that's in the case of, I think the question is specific about in the case where there's hose retraction.
Hose retraction, okay. So I think I would not be limited to the hose retractor, right? The safety aspect of a breakaway sits with the design of the pump. So where any pump has a high hose, so basically the hose comes from a canopy down, okay? Regulation stipulates that the breakaway should be installed at the canopy end, right? The hose is obviously a lot stronger than the retractor, and if someone had to rip accidentally, we will not blame people doing this intentionally, but accidentally rip the hose from the pump, right? The hose retractor cord would break before the actual hose tension. And to limit fuel spillage, and from an environmental and safety perspective, the correct recommendation would be at the canopy end.
Yes, I agree with that, Hoosain. I hope that answers the question. If it doesn't, if you require further explanation there, just please feel free to post in the Q&A. Let me take the second question here. It's, did part number 145470 DOMS CPB 539? Not sure about the part numbers. I don't have them memorized, but I'm sure he's talking about the CPB 539 CPU of DOMS, whether it can integrate with Wayne Helix 4000. Simple answer, yes, I've integrated with Wayne Helix myself. I've done it multiple times. It's the one with two CPUs, right? So the DOMS controller will see it as 4 fueling points, right? And it integrates with it seamlessly via the Wayne Dart protocol, RS485.
Yeah, I've personally not done this, but I think all Wayne pump protocols are integrated to DOMS. That would be my short answer.
Yes. There's Wayne Dart, and there's a couple more different special Wayne protocols, but the most common one is the Dart one, right? But anyway, we can talk to all of them.
Super, we have another one. Any others?
There was one question that I had answered about the maximum number of tanks in a 450 plus. I said 64, considering the number of modules that you can put there. And then I think there's a follow-up there, is 64 tanks support BIR. So I'll leave that one to you, Hoosain, because that's an extra feature, right? Which is supported by the ATG,
So,
but it is in fact an extra software feature, right?
yeah. So BIR basically stands for Business Inventory Recon, right? So it's a reconciliation between what's in your tank, your underground storage tank or above ground storage tank, and what is left the nozzle. If we're not getting too technical, right? The ATG is the Veeder-Root ATG is very, very accurate, down to 1 liter or 0.1 liter when we monitor. So if we're monitoring 64 tanks, and all these 64 tanks are connected to dispensers where we can accumulate all the transactions that have come from the dispensers, then sincerely we can supply reconciliation. The key is to ensure that we can have access to the sales data, right? Because with 64 tanks, you're probably going to have a pretty big forecourt, I'm assuming, or unless the 64 tanks are just huge storage capacity, and it might be on a truck stop, for example. Let's say the truck stop has 10 islands, right? And you need a huge storage capacity. But the limitation comes in that we have to ensure that from end to end, we receive all the transactions. So every single fueling transaction, there has to be no dispenser that the transactional detail is not sent through a point of sale system and then to the tank gauge. And then obviously we have a probe in every single tank to monitor the fuel level.
Yes, and by the way, if you have a DOMS controller, then you don't really need a point of sale system, because then the DOMS controller can talk to the ATG, give it the dispenser sales directly, and then the ATG system can use that in the reconciliation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me see if the team has any more questions for us. I guess that's it. I was expecting a lot more questions. You know what? Let me. There's one question that I've received, not in this forum, but I've received a lot in the past couple of days that I wanted to talk to real quick. Some people are saying that some of our competition, and I'm curious to see what you think about that, Hoosain. Some of our competition are installing little vibration equipment on their probes to free the stuck floats. So every time the float gets stuck because of dirty fuels, obviously, there's a vibration sense, or kind of a small vibrator on the probe that releases the stuck float like every certain frequency, X number of minutes, right? And I've gotten the questions like in a kind of like a frustrated way, like, why don't you guys, Galbarco, have that? And I take issue with that because it's just a symptomatic fix, right? And I'm curious to see what you think about that, Hoosain. Because if I was a dealer, I'd want to know if my float's getting stuck because of dirty fuels. I don't want my probe to hide that from me.
Absolutely. And I also take the viewpoint of identifying the symptoms and implementing the resolution, right? To put a vibration unit on a probe to release the floats doesn't solve the problem, right? That would be my example point. If there is a reoccurrence of stuck floats, that would indicate a problem with fuel quality or with contamination in the tank. And my assessment would be to address the issue in the tank, right? Either the tank has to go through a filtration cycle or something to remove the debris in the tank. And that would be a better approach for the long-term resolution of stuck floats than periodically shaking a float to release the sticky float. But I personally wouldn't opt for that approach because I'm not solving a problem for a customer. The root cause of the problem is contaminated fuel, right? And that's what we need to address.
Okay, so you agree. Thanks, Hoosain. Right, I guess that's it. I'm not seeing any further questions. So before we drop off, I just wanted to mention this. I'm not sure if you can see in my camera behind me there. It says, meet us at next MENA Roundtable in Abu Dhabi from the 22nd to the 23rd of November. And then at Convenience Majlis in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia on the 27th and 28th of November. So looking forward to see everyone there.
Yeah. So Adam, from my side, thank you very much for co-hosting with me. And to all the
Always a
attendees, I'd
pleasure,
like
mate.
to encourage either reach out to your channel partners or reach out to GVR directly if you have any future questions. If you'd like any engagement for us, or if you'd like any more information on any of the products that we've presented for you today. Super.
Perfect. Thank you,
So much.
Hoosain.
And thank you everybody
Always
for
a
joining.
pleasure. And thank you everyone for joining us.